We also have an article here, National News Watch. Canadians kind of hate America now. I think it's been for a while now. I think the whole reason we saw a liberal government get a fourth term is because of how much Canadians hate America. It's pretty sad. But if we look here, and I'll pull it up here. There's a new poll that shows just how much we apparently hate them. And by we, I don't mean me, and I assume I don't mean you guys as well. It's not just about the trade war. Nearly half think the US is a bigger threat to the world peace than Russia. Again,
What a
why does
statement.
what a statement, but why does
That's nuts.
China always get a pass? What do you
Good
make of
question.
that, Ellie?
It's this is like almost a mass, and this is what I've kind of seen all along. Is this is a mass psychosis of sorts. This is
100%.
people when you consume legacy media, which I do because as a journalist, I need to know what they're telling Canadians, and
Mhm.
it's nonstop every day. It's this anti-America porn, basically, of America's bad, America's bad, America's bad. And what that does is it makes you believe something that is not based in reality. If you look at China, China imposed horrible tariffs on Canada, and they detained citizens, and they committed a genocide against the Uyghur Muslims.
Mhm.
And there were polls showing that the elbows up crowd preferred China over the U.S., a democracy
Wow.
that gives people, has lots of civil liberties. But there is a derangement. I experienced it
Yeah.
myself. I went down to America Fest, the Turning Point USA event in December, and I usually don't get a lot of hate online, but there were like very, very vicious comments on all my posts, including from some prominent liberals who were saying things like, "We hope you get deported by ICE, you traitor, or detained by ICE."
Wow.
They're
Wow.
wishing, they think ICE are basically Nazis, and then they want me to get
Mhm.
detained by them. It's like it seems like you're a little bit. And what's interesting is while Canada focuses on this really obsession where they consume all this US news, they're always obsessed with the US, Americans are living life. There is a post on Reddit that came up this week, and I believe it's in a border town, in a grocery store parking lot, and someone being like, "What is this elbows up thing?" It was funny because there was a Canadian that had a bumper sticker that said "elbows up" and
No.
was going to the U.S. to buy, I guess, cheaper groceries. Oh, the irony! And
Kidding.
uh, the Americans didn't know. The Americans
Wow.
aren't aware. When I tell them what's going on in Canada, and I told a lot of people at America Fest, they were completely astounded. So I think this is just more evidence of what Jamil Javani said. This is the anti-American hissy fit, and unfortunately, a lot of Canadians have let their emotions take over logic and fact. Yes, the trade war is frustrating. Yes, there are certain things going on in the U.S. that aren't amazing, but no, the U.S. is not the greatest threat to the world. There's Russia,
Oh.
there's Iran, China pose a much greater threat.
Oh my goodness. And how much we've needed them. And I would say continue to need them. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I want to say about a year ago, less than a year ago, a plane was hijacked in British Columbia by a radical Islamist, and it was heading. And before we can even get our defense planes off the ground, the US came and intervened and saved our butts. I mean, this is how valuable our relationship is
Well,
with the
we
US. Go
can't
ahead.
even we can't even shoot down balloons for Pete's sake.
It's
Like
just
I mean, to say that that jeopardizing our relationship with the United States is the way to go is absolutely insanity, in my opinion. We're living in upside down clown town. We had an
absolutely.
election last year that was solely based on a former banker from the UK, that was living in the UK. It was just a rage farming, TDS rage fest.
Mhm,
And it was disgusting. I mean, we've been friends. They're our closest neighbors. They're our biggest trading partner.
mhm.
And like Eli just said, I mean, we are a country that is now running by feelings, running on emotional reactions instead of logic and the rule of law. I have not met one single Canadian across this whole country that says anything bad about Americans. They're all appalled at what our media continues to push out for our politicians.
You're right. The media is so strong with this. That same poll, it just says that the new results of the poll suggest a lasting chill has settled over the world's former bosom buddies. Americans are rosy as ever about their northern neighbors, but Canadians don't share the love. And I agree with you, Tamara. it is the media for the most part that made that happen, that gave people, I don't know if you know people like this, but many of the people in my life who are not really into politics, all they know is Trump. They don't even know a thing about Mark Carney. They just know everything to do with US politics as the media has crafted it. And that's very concerning. I think that's why we're seeing this division. I want to circle back to something Ellie said, because it reminded me of something when you said that you went to the US and then you saw comments saying, "Oh, I hope ICE gets you," and what that means. It reminded me of when I spoke out against Black Lives Matter. And then the so-called people who thought, the liberals who thought Black Lives Matter would say to me, "I hope the police get you." Like it's like the same thing. I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
you guys are
Wow.
nuts, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really sad and it's concerning if this continues where we don't have this relationship. I certainly isn't a winning position for Canadians overall, I don't think. Another poll here, this one is published. We heard about it through City News Vancouver. And it's a new poll which finds that 2/3 of Canadians are also solidly behind Prime Minister Mark Carney's efforts to transition away from a Trump tariff impacted economy towards new opportunities and ventures. I mean, what other choice do we have? I think that Prime Minister Carney kind of shot us in the foot in those first 8 months or so of doing diddly squat for us. But what do you make of that, of the majority of Canadians supporting this effort to find a new path? I'll go to you, Ellie.
Well, I think that doesn't surprise me. I mean, from what we talked about, uh, people are just going along and aren't thinking critically about anything. But if I can add something, last week Jamil Javani caused a whole lot of anger when he mentioned the hissy fit with the US and when he went down there. And what I kept, including amongst conservatives, there were a lot of prominent, I call them the CBC conservatives because they're the only conservatives who are allowed on the CBC, and some others as well, some commentators who were criticizing this. And all I kept thinking to myself is, well, we're now more than a year into Elbows Up, which is kind of the Mark Carney liberal strategy, the
Yeah.
running those Ontario ads in the US strategy, the taking the alcohol off the shelves strategy, the bashing the US strategy. What has that delivered? We're a year into this. You look at other countries around the world that have taken another strategy. They're making deals, they're making advances. Canada's not negotiating. Canada, in fact, got tariff increases because of the elbows up strategy. So, what's going on? Like, honestly, last week when they were all coming down on Jamil, this felt like another mass formation psychosis. It's a bit like when you have the first politician that comes out for an event like the convoy, maybe, or some other cause, and everyone just go rails down on them. And then eventually everyone starts to realize this person was right. I think that's probably where we're going to end up being. But right now, like, this just makes no sense. What's the other alternative? China that sends the spy balloons and the spy cars into our society? Come on.
Mhm, mhm. And I personally am not really pro politician. I mean, they're man. That's, I don't put a lot of faith into men in general. I hope and I root for things, and I like a lot of the things that President Trump has done, obviously. But I'm noticing that it's becoming, again, I'm going into my personal life, that people, I realize, like, even in my own family, where I can't have these political conversations because if I do, I might lose my relationship with my loved ones. I think we can all resonate with some of that. But what I'm getting at is, I don't talk to them about President Trump, but it's almost like they're excited now. Like, it's like, oh, what do you think of your Trump now? Look what he's doing now. Look at this. And look at the monkeys on the Obamas. Like, they're just so happy to bring it up. Tamara, are you finding anything like that where, I will admit, it's a bit harder to rebuttal now because I think it's so complex, the situation. Are you
Yes.
getting any of that?
Well, I mean, I like a lot of things about President Trump too. I don't have to like everything about him. I mean, of
Right.
course, I think he could behave a little more diplomatically and with a little bit more tact, but that's just quite simply not who he is. Um, as far as the poll goes, I mean, I personally stopped believing in polls in 2016 during his
Mhm.
election run against Hillary Clinton, when the polls were telling me that 98 or
Mm.
96% of Americans were going to be voting for Hillary Clinton and hand her a landslide, and we saw how that turned out.
Hmm.
Coincidentally, that was about the same time that I stopped heavily daily consumption of the mainstream media. Um, but, even going back to what Ela was saying about, Jamel going down there, I mean, even Pierre Poilievre sort of threw him under the bus, which,
Mhm.
sort of surprised me. I mean, I think when we're at a situation, self-imposed, in my opinion, in a situation like we are right now with the United States, anyone that can go down there and try to make a difference to help Canadians and their country should be applauded and cheered on and
Mhm.
encouraged. I mean, this is not just a partisan issue. We're talking about the entire economic welfare of the whole country.
Mhm.
So I applaud him for going down and doing that. But again, it seems to be what's happening, and I think we're seeing this anti-Trump rhetoric ramping up again. But I have a sneaking suspicion that we may have an election coming up in the spring. So I
Mhm.
think that all of this is by design. And one of the fallouts of that you're seeing is like influencers in the States like Matt Walsh, who are speaking out against Canada,
Mhm.
are irritating the elbows up crowd even more. So, it starts this cycle um, of ridiculousness and anger that, if there is a spring election, that's going to be, I think it's going to be very similar, if not worse, than the one we just had last year.